All right, so I think most people that watch this are going to want to know, who is Eric Palmer? Because we see a lot of you around. You're an influence in your own right before there were influencers in the insurance business.
Can I steal that one-liner for like my LinkedIn?
I told you earlier, most people don't get in the insurance business when they're young, but you're an anomaly. So from the start, how?
So I always joke, I went to college to be a doctor, and I came out of life insurance sales. And my dad didn't talk to me for 2 years. He was pretty bummed that was the outcome. He's since then got over it. But, it's one of those weird circumstances. I literally went to college with the intent to get a molecular cellular biology major. I was doing brain tumor research and all throughout high school. And so I just sort of had this, I'm going to be Doogie Howser mindset, right?
But you still look like you're 22.
Yeah,
so
I grew the mustache to
you
try
got
to
that part
hedge
down.
that a little bit. It's slightly working. I'm waiting for it to turn gray, and then you'll really know I'm in my 40s. But it was 3 years into college, I was doing an internship with a heart surgeon, and he said something really interesting, and I had not heard anybody say to me before. He's like, "Well, why do you want to be a doctor?" And I was like, "Oh, I want to save lives. Be a pediatric surgeon." He's like, "No, I mean, do you know what it means to be a doctor?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you save lives." And he's like, "Let me explain something to you." And he talked about the customers or the clients, the patients that he helps, and then he talked about the ones that he doesn't. And then he said, "Eric, this is a business." He goes, "I'd like to save everybody too, but I can't afford to. I got staff, I've got people." And he broke down the business part of medicine. And immediately I was like, "My God, thanks for popping my balloon." But I'm an emotion on the sleeve kind of guy, and it brought reality to, not helping people when scientifically you can, and actually start, delivering bad news to people, because it is as much bad news, if anything, than it is good news. And I was like, wow, I've dedicated myself to something that is not for me. But I was really good at two things in college. Number one was drinking Coors Light, and number two was talking and being social. I really kind of found that part of myself in college, and had some mutual friends, David Rasich, one of them, and I remember sitting at an Applebee's. All of our friends, we drank Amber Bock, because that was the cool thing to do at Applebee's, right, back in the day. And all of our friends are just pounding beers and talking sports like we always do, and David and I are at the end of the table, and I had taken a job for this call center, really, just to pay the bills and make rent, and I was rapidly advancing, and they had just told me that I was in tech support, and I said, for Nextel, if I can say that on camera, right? And that was when the rubber phones, you could throw it against the wall, wouldn't break, right? One. And they kept coming out with new ones every 3 months. And I'm in tech support. There's 85 people in tech support, and I hacked into the sales module, and instead of fixing phones, I just started selling people new ones. I'm like, why fix it when you can buy a brand new one? There's a promotion coming up, you get it for free, and blah, 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 blah. And Nextel was like, who is this guy? He's outselling the salespeople, and he's in tech support. And they said, hey, Eric, we want to relocate you to the Philippines, and we want you to convert tech support to sales. And I was like, I haven't even been to New York. I'm like 19 years old, going on to almost 20 at that point. I'm like, that's amazing, but I'm not ready for that kind of a change in my life. And it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but I learned that I was pretty decent at sales. And so I'm sitting at the end of the table, and David's like, what are you doing? I'm telling him about this. And he's like, what do you know about life insurance? He's like, what is life insurance? I don't know, nothing. What is life insurance? And he kind of broke down that, his dad had a brokerage, and he owned this technology company, and he had figured out how to generate leads on the internet. Now, for the folks listening, this is back when you plugged it into the phone jack, and it made some weird, crazy sounds, and then you had Encarta, right? Yeah. So it was early internet, and David had, he's brilliant in tech, and he discovered how to generate leads online, and he's like, I'm gonna start this company. I'm gonna generate these leads and sell life insurance, and you should come on board. And I was like, let's do it. So that was it. That was my entry into life insurance. And we went and bought a 18 back of beer and sat in a circle with a couple other buddies and studied for our life licenses. And I had just turned 21 at that point, and we were, from that point on, it was off to the races. Yeah.
And that's a niche piece of the life insurance business. It's not like you were out there selling. You were generating the leads, working the tech funnel, working the funnels before there was such a thing. No one called it funnels back then, right?
Right. And the familiarity for me was medical underwriting. So this is before all the the advanced technology we use today to help underwrite people. This is when you had to ask questions. If somebody says they're diabetic, you have to know, is it type 2, type 1? Are you on metformin? Are you taking insulin? What are you doing to treat it? How long have you had it? All these things. And I understood that came to me like second nature, because I had spent how many years studying all that side of the world. So it was just sort of easy for me to understand life insurance and medical underwriting. And we would sit in a small room together, and there was 2 other buddies at the time that started this company with us, and we would just make phone calls and talk to people about life insurance and ask them about their medical impairments. In fact, we specialized in it.
And these were coming from the leads?
The leads. So David found a niche that, this is the early on stuff. Like Progressive wasn't even a thing yet. Geico wasn't even really a thing yet. Everybody was just getting into the internet insurance business. And we focused on impaired risk, which was people with medical conditions, because at that time, access to information was only just blossoming into what it is today. So most people, even if you were a type 2 diabetic, if you got declined by Allstate, you thought that was it. I'm done. No one's going to ever offer me life insurance. And we're calling people up and saying, hey, there's like 25 life insurance companies that'll offer you insurance. Let me ask you some questions and see which one would make sense for you. So it was a familiar sort of transition in a way for me, outside of not knowing what life insurance was, but I was still passionately talking about the stuff that I loved, which was medical science, and it just kind of was a great fit.
Was there ever a spot early on where you were like, I should be in the Philippines, made the wrong call?
A couple times. We, like any startup business, we had struggles. I mean, you have to remember, again, like this is dating us, right? But in 2001 to 2006, we were still taking applications. David would hack into Adobe, again, I hope I can say that, and we made our own version of fillable forms. So we were like cutting edge, right? And most people were quoting off of like manual quotes. You get a piece of paper, you remember this, right? You would have to like manually quote somebody insurance on a cost per 1,000. And we figured out how to hack into some stuff and make our own quote engine, so we were kind of edgy on that. But we still had to sit with the customer on the phone, fill out the app over the phone, put it into a DHL, and ship it out for how many dollars, and hope that it came back. And so if I sold 75 apps a month, I would maybe get 15 clients to pay for it. So it started out, we're like, oh, we're going to be, we're high-fiving, we're going to be millionaires, we cracked it, we're going to be super successful. But you start looking at the cost of doing business back then, it was very labor intensive to do an online lead gen type of a business. And we struggled. So there, I was making less than I was making at the previous gig, but I had a different mindset, and I think David did too. A couple of our buddies ultimately were just like, one of my best friends to this day, he's like, I'm gonna go travel to Europe. You're coming with me or you're not. And I said, I think I got a thing here. And he went and traveled to Europe. The other guy said, hey, I'm gonna go sell cell phones. We stuck with it. I think the biggest thing David and I recognize is that we're on to something cutting edge. And so if I got to eat ramen and live in, a crummy part of town for a little bit longer and drive my baby blue S10 a few more years than I wanted to, we were willing to make that sacrifice, because we recognized that we were onto something, and that the sacrifice was going to be worth the effort. But yeah, there were some moments where I was going, man, I'm watching a buddy of mine that went and took the job, and he's like loving life, and I was like, maybe did I choose right? And turns out I did.
Hindsight,
yeah,
2020. So fast forward a little bit. I want to talk. I mean, you've done a ton of other things besides insurance, but we'll come back to that. But fast forward to today, you're working in advanced markets. You're running marketing, sales. You've got the major corporate company, one of the biggest IMOs. Is there anything you would have changed along the way?
That's a really good question. I think I probably would have. There's moments of complacency, I think, in anyone's life. I've been doing this for 21 years, right? We all reach plateaus. And the plateau is usually, the origin of the plateau is usually you're doing the same thing over and over again. And if you're kind of an alpha, like I always joke, there's more than one mouse running on a treadmill. There's about 7 up here, right? Just constantly going. You burn out, and you're doing the same thing over, then you burn out and you plateau. And I've had a few of those moments where it's just kind of like we're running so hard and you're kind of out of breath for a minute. So in hindsight, I think in those moments of time, I would have like to have applied even a greater effort to expand my knowledge base, get more designations, get more, information and education in the other parts of the industry that at the time I wasn't seeking. I kind of really stuck in the life insurance and the advanced life insurance application for a very long time. But as I finally got deeper into my career, I'm like, well, I gotta understand all things financial, understand all things planning, tax, estate. I want to know deeper level of education. So if I could go back, I would tell my plateaued version of myself as I kind of stair step through my career, hey, take this opportunity to as a refresh, because you might be out of breath, but you can sit in a comfy chair and start reading a book, educate yourself even further. Because who knows where I'd actually be today had I could grab myself and say, hey, look, grab a book and get a designation or something.
You could say, people with your personality will always say that. I mean, you'll end up at the end still saying that, probably, even though you worked to get where you are.
Well, our business, I say our business, financial services. What a deep ocean.
Broad.
It's so broad, right? And so there's just so much to learn. It's never ending. And if you do stop educating yourself, you're cutting yourself short of what you could ultimately end up doing for people. So I'll probably always say that, but I think the industry also lends itself to the fact that there is always something to learn. January 1st, 2026, what's going to happen? The current tax law is going to revert, right? There's going to be major changes, and we all got to re-educate ourselves about that. So it never ends, and you just can't get complacent, and you got to keep driving the education.
It's a good industry for someone that's got 6 mouses running around the hamster wheel.
6 or 7.
6 or 7.
One of them might be out of breath. We'll see.
One of those mouses almost made you the next creator of Monster, right? Didn't you? You did an energy drink one time.
Yeah. Boy, that's an industry I had no idea about. We thought, wow, 5 Hour Energy is killing it. In fact, I realized it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. We hooked up with a guy that knew that scientifically there's things inside energy drinks, and you can add additional, natural ingredients that also attribute to weight loss. And I'm like, well, so what? There's a million weight loss programs out there, right? And I did some research, and weight loss alone is like at 6.5 at the time. This is a while back, but $6.5 billion industry, and a lot of it's injectables and pills and all these like dangerous things for people. And again, I turned that molecular cellular biology brain starts going, and I'm going, man, there's a natural way to do this. Let's and a buddy, I can't even claim the idea. He's like, it was his. He said, what if we create an energy drink that's a weight loss and it's a fat burner? And we came up with a company called F Burner. Get the F off, get the F out of here. And like the marketing was really, really cool. And that's what was attractive. I got excited about the marketing part. But 2 things we learned quickly. Number one, when you have a full-time gig and you're like, I commit, like when I go into my work mode, it's 180,000% all the way through until I can turn off the spigot and go, be a family man. And I found it difficult to grow like a startup while trying to do this, because I'm a big believer in, at some point you have to hang up the spurs and just go be yourself. You can't live your job because it'll consume you. And so that was difficult to kind of start a startup. More difficult in an industry that is ruthless and brutal. And we went to these conferences, and you'd find out that you have to grease the guy over here to get some shelf space, because 5 Hour Energy was ruthless. They were like bullying the distributors, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to be saying this stuff, right? Like 5 Hour Energy, right? But it's an aggressive business. It's a very ruthless business.
Hard one to break into.
And you had to have a lot of capital to break into it, because you had to pay your way in. And me and a few buddies put up what savings we had at the time to do it, and the end result was we didn't break in. I almost got Sam's Club to put me on their shelf, and then they, what happened to Sam's Club? They didn't survive, and I almost got GNC to buy into us, and they decided they didn't want to be in that space, and I ended up having to pay to have like 750,000 bottles of F Burner like professionally destroyed. I
was going to say, you're still looking good. Are you using it today?
No. I carry all my weight in the arteries, man. I'm heavier than I look, but it was fun. It was an experience. We lost money, but it was an experience. Yeah. I learned a valuable lesson in market research before you enter into markets. And we thought we had a cool idea, but we went into an industry that we were just not prepared prepared for.
Does that flood over into other ideas? The lessons from that, did you take it to? I know you like to brew beer. Was there ever a thought to like, let's go public with the beer and let's try to sell that? Or
Yeah, so that's actually part of me and another friend. He's a financial advisor. Part of our retirement strategy, because when you retire, you don't retire. Like
Right.
You might stop working X job, but if you don't have a plan, you're going to be bored out of your mind, and you're going to regret retiring, right? So our beer brewing, I have a whole bar idea around it. We'll probably dig into that. But as we started getting into that side of the world, we were getting excited. We had all these great ideas. Again, beautiful marketing plan, strategic. It made sense. We're like, oh, we're geniuses. But this time I did the market research, and the amount you have to brew and what you have to do, the licensing, the facility costs, the maintenance. I mean, you start adding that up and you're going, oh, I need a baseline of 7 figures, and it's not 1 million, right? It's several $1 million to pull this off.
just to get product out.
Right. So the lesson was, you could have the most brilliant marketing idea in the world. In fact, I got a new one around gummies, but you can have the most brilliant marketing ideas in the world. You could have the visualization of the packaging and the process, and everyone's going to love it, but the execution takes money and time and research.
What about the brew? I mean, have you landed on a secret recipe?
Yeah, we've
think you got one?
Couple.
Really?
We so being from the financial services industry, we got real into naming our beers off of financial instruments. And so, like, I'll give you just an example because I don't think anyone's gonna care. But your IPAs are always your 6 and 7%,
Right.
alcohols. The Series 7.
That's pretty nice.
It's gonna be
I
the
like
IPA.
it. I like it.
We'll see how it goes. We're probably gonna be more popular in financial districts, but
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And then you're getting into the gummy business, you said? You got an idea around that too?
I had some ideas around that too. That's an interesting industry because I think there was a boom, and then everybody went stock public. And then there's this. Now it's just all lawsuits about the lies and the facade of what the values were. And if you were like me, you bought in and you were up 300%. You're touting your portfolio, and then 2 years later you're down 300%. Going, why am I getting emails from all these attorneys about class action lawsuits against these companies? And so it had this boom, and now it's sort of settled. I think the industry's learned a lot. There's regulatory changes across the states, and that presents opportunities for businesses, and they're niche-y. I mean, I was golfing recently with a guy that builds, his only job is he builds a component within a component within a component that delivers the process of intaking marijuana, and it's a multi-million-dollar business. So any industry that's new and fresh and starts getting regulatory adoption overall, I think that opens a credible amount of doors. The due diligence on this one is extensive, and it's I've just only started kind of thinking it through, but it's
I imagine it's
a lot of
complex too,
moving
because
parts.
it's
Oh my gosh.
state and then federal.
State,
and all
federal,
the bullshit that
and
comes
a
with
lot
that.
of opinion, a lot of sort of interpretation. So there's a lot of due diligence to do on that one. But to me, it's just exciting. I can't always maybe bring things to full fruition, but for me, part of the excitement is thinking about it, and thinking it up, the ideas,
getting it laid out.
I think I've been blessed with a brain that thinks that way, is always looking for, oh boy, if this thing had this and that, and maybe we did it over here like this, and we could package it up.
Could
and
be a
here's another
thing.
opportunity.
And maybe it's just a timing thing. Maybe all those things is like writing songs. You just got a book of them.
Right.
Just, eventually one of them is you'll pull it out and you'll actually do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I thought bullshitsprayer.com was going to go huge.
It actually still could. Actually, you just gave that away. Can we edit that one out?
Take out bullshit.
I'll go 50-50 on that with you. I got some thoughts.
All right, so back to your main industry that you're making your money on today. You go through this process of learning how to sell life insurance, mostly impaired risk. Then what? Then you branch into what?
So I get bored easy in doing the same thing over and over again. So I was already, we'd started out selling term life insurance, which is an incredible product and has an application and a lot of reasons why you would want it. But I have this, I want to know more. And conveniently for me, the founder of the company that we work for at the time was sort of my mentor. I mean, he really was one of my first mentors in this business. And he really embraced free thinking and growth and thoughts and strategy. And our current CEO was in transition of taking over the business. And we quickly realized that we had to diversify, because at the time the company was only doing really one thing, lots of term life insurance. And that was becoming a commodity business. The price of term life insurance was going down, it wasn't going up. And so our revenue then, by nature, if we didn't grow at some exponential rate, the revenue was going down too. So we had to diversify and expand. And it was a small company at that point. There was like 7 of us. So, Joe says, Eric, what do you know about annuities? And I was like, I'm having deja vu, because your son asked me that several years ago. What do I know about life insurance? And here I am today. So the answer is, I don't know what it is. And I'm probably not even sure how to spell it, but let me go do some research. And he said, I want you to create us an annuity division. I said, okay. So that sort of began the journey for me of, within the organization, building out the divisions to help us diversify outside of this single lane. And so I created our annuity division, built it myself, and then brought people in to support it. And then that just sort of continued. The next chapter was, well, we got to get into more permanent life insurance. Okay, let's go figure that out. Index ULs, whole life, GULs. And then it was, there's this tremendous marketplace for these advanced concepts. And we say advanced concept, that's so deep, right? It's really, there's the mass affluent, there's the ultra affluent, and there's business owners. And those solutions are specific applications. So it's not just about product anymore. It's about the application of product, the legal part, the tax part, and how it all fits into a grand scheme. And so I set out to start that. And it kind of originated with premium finance life insurance, which is, essentially you get a bank to pay the premiums for somebody that qualifies, and they service the debt. So the ratio of cost out of pocket to the dollars and the benefit going in increases the internal rate of return. And I was fascinated with that, because you get me into a spreadsheet, and then you get that spreadsheet, that's sexy. That's
it's a machine,
like
all
spreadsheet
its own,
porn,
right?
man.
Yeah.
Like, you gave me a whole bunch of working numbers and some colors and things. That's exciting for me. So when I got to starting to build the advanced markets for the company, I was like, this feels like home, because it's complicated, it's always changing. I don't think I'm going to get bored here. And I say get bored. I don't want to give the message as in it's our products are boring. They're actually quite interesting, and they do amazing things. But Eric Palmer needs to constantly evolve.
Can't do the same thing over and over and over.
In the advanced space, it's not the same thing over and over. I mean, I talk to 3 to 4 business owners a day now, and we've really evolved it to where we go point of sale with our advisor partners and producer partners. And I'm learning about business owners and all these amazing businesses that you never would have thought existed. So that's just interesting in itself. And you're solving problems. I mean, they're like riddles, and they're not all the same. It's not, I don't reach into the bag of 2 or 3 solutions and just keep doing the same thing. It's always different. So that's kind of where I've been hovering a lot of my time, even though I've got other responsibilities. I'm very passionate about the advanced markets now. So I've been fortunate. I think I was from a timing perspective in a company that needed a person like me that sort of had the aptitude and the ambition to build out these other parts and be a part of this growing company that has now grown to a point where we're one of the largest in the country, and it's exciting.
This episode of Casita Conversations is brought to you by Tropics Collective. Tropics uses only the highest quality Delta-9 and THC ingredients to bring you the very best of what cannabis has to offer. It's Farm Bill compliant, which means it's legal in all 50 states for everyone. Give it a try today, and if you use our promo code, you'll save 15% on your entire first order. Go to tropicscollective.com and use the promo code Casita to get your discount today. Tropics Collective is defining the art of cannabis.
Also took a risk to get there, right? I mean, you had a job lined out you could have gone to, and you took a risk on somebody, on something, on a process that said, so you're a little bit of a risk taker in addition to a self-educator, because when the problem presented itself, you had to go figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And, I attribute that to my parents. I mean, they were, my dad always said, it's all based on the economic system. That was his one-liner. And we never understood what that meant, but what he was driving to us is that, you got to build your own castle, and I'm not going to build it for you. Our parents they had money, but it wasn't our money, and they made it very clear. Here's the doors. I'll help you get opportunity, but then you got to walk through it yourself. And so we had a good foundation, I think, as kids from our upbringing, that you kind of got to go after it on your own.
So
yeah,
when you're
which
so when
means
you're
you gotta
selling,
take some risk,
you got to take some risk, and so you're selling term policies, $300-$400 a year term policies, maybe more, and now you're selling. You mentioned we were just talking $1.6 million in premium, and not only that, but was it so a two-part question. The second part is more important than the first part. The first part is, would you have ever thought that that's where you were going in the insurance business? And the second part is, your family came out of the insurance business. Like,
right.
Fuck, when you made that decision to skip over a job and take a risk without any idea that 20 years later, not only would you have a career where you're selling $2 million policies, but you have a family because of this industry, right?
Right.
Crazy?
Totally crazy. So yeah, no, early on, I had no idea there was a such thing as a single transaction that would yield that much premium dollar. And, so that's, I had no idea that was even a thing. We were selling $25 a month term life insurance when we first started, and getting stoked when you finally sold a deal where you'd make $2,500. And when you're 22, 23 years old, $2,500, and I get it, going back in the early 2000s.
For some people, that's still a lot of money.
Yeah, that was a lot of money. And that's like 5 months of rent. And we're like, holy crap, right? You can make $2,500 in a deal. So that was amazingly eye-opening. And now for me, it's not I'm not trying to set a record necessarily, but it just tells me and I think people in similar roles as me that, sky's really the limit. But one of the greatest things about what we do, because we're de-riskers, right, is that if I'm making more money, it's because I did that much more for my customer. And if the reward is deep, then I can look back and go, but look what we did for that business.
The value also deep.
Absolutely. And I tell all of our clients, you get me in perpetuity. It's not just, I'm not a set it and forget it one-dimensional planner. This is going to change. We're going to evolve. We're going to evolve with it. So it's exciting to do big deals, but you can look back and say, I did a big deal, but that was a big deal for that customer too. That put them on a path of security and safety and strategy that's going to help their business succeed and help their personal estate and their family succeed and check the boxes that they were trying to check, maybe working with other individuals that didn't have the breadth of access and resources that we do.
So is your moral of your story to insurance agents, get in the industry and you'll be selling $2 million policies, meet an awesome wife, and have a beautiful family? Yeah,
I think that's it. That's the thing. Cheers to that, right? I know. And the message is, if you want that to be the outcome, you better knuckle down and educate and get smart and
take advantage
of the resources and opportunities to apply yourself to learn more and more and more every day. Because those big deals don't come from clients that aren't going to ask you questions and want you to have the right answers. I mean, you've got to know what you're doing. But if you can achieve that level of knowledge, you can help those people and you can make that kind of money. And the family part, that's just, I'm not a religious man per se, but boy, am I blessed because, I've late in life found the forever wife and quickly had 2 kids. And, I'm 43 now. I had my son in 2019. I was 39. So late parents, right? And I had my second son 2 years later. And, I kind of thought I had all the reasons why I do what I do figured out, but you have a wife that you think is, this is it, this is forever. And then you have 2 kids or any number of kids. It's, wow, I had it all wrong. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it changed my mindset even in my planning process. Now it's very important for me to make sure that we talk about the family element of what we do. And sometimes I won't even take on clients if they don't have sort of that belief system. I think, you reach a level in your career where you have the fortunate nature to be able to do business with people you want to do business with and like-mindedness or that align philosophically with what you think is important. That's a triple blessing, right? Yeah. So my family, my wife is a competitor in the business and met at a conference and was at a time where I thought
Does that make for very aggressive sex, or is it?
It makes for
We can
interesting.
cut this if you want.
Yeah, interesting Sunday dinners when we're sitting around with the family and we're talking about IULs as the kids are running around the table, and
They're gonna know all about it, though, right?
yeah, absolutely. My kids will probably be somewhat well educated about life insurance and planning. By 12, I'm sure.
Well, if Christy and the kids is the last thing they heard you say, what would you tell them?
Love you forever. Love you forever. I mean, I almost feel like love you is not even powerful enough, but love you forever. There's no other way to say it, right? You have to kind of just express it. Yeah. And I hope there's never a moment where I only get one thing to say and never say it again, because that would be devastating. In fact, I went vegetarian Monday through Friday, Charles, just so I could try to live longer.
Well, hope that's working for you.
Yeah, well, it seems to be. I don't know. We'll see. You said I look thin.
Well, you're a marketing genius. Let's leave them with this. Target. Good idea, bad idea.
Target?
Yeah.
Target? I think my response would be right direction to start thinking about the fact that if you're a business, and it doesn't matter what business you are, you need to make your customers feel appreciated and feel like they can come to you for whatever service or product that you sell and buy it from you or get it from you and get it with no bias. And so I think good move early in terms of how things are being adopted today, risky and warranted. Look, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. If you sell something or you're in business, whether it's service or gadgets and gadgets, it doesn't matter. You have customers and you need to appeal to all of them. And so the businesses that have the bravery and the courage to appeal to all of their customers, I applaud them. The businesses that are nervous or second guessing their choices, understandable, it's natural, but if you pay attention to marketing trends over the course of history, okay, the Romans were marketers, right? The original caveman marketed his buddy on starting a fire and getting warm. Eventually, what you'll come to realize is that the marketplace is what dictates it, not the business. So the marketplace is going to dictate what it needs and what it wants, and ultimately everybody will jump on the ship to provide it, or they're going to be out of business.
Yeah, history will tell, right?
History
you look
will
back
tell.
at they're either going to be geniuses or wrong move.
Wrong move.
Never
And
know.
again, it's a lot of this stuff is new, right? It's scary, I think, to some organizations and political viewpoints and whatnot. But revenue is powerful, and business is in business to make revenue. And so I think, again, the adoption will change once they realize that the marketplace is what's dictating whether or not your business succeeds.
Yeah. Well said, my friend. I was trying to stump you there, but you came through.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
All right. See y'all.
Acrylic Financial Incorporated is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by those on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Acrylic Financial. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance, and some guests may have been paid a fee to be interviewed for this show.